Welcome to Local Word 2. I'm Lorraine, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Amanda Barr, a breakup and divorce coach who's passionate about helping individuals navigate relationship transitions with empathy, clarity, and confidence. Amanda specialises in providing support through breakup and divorce coaching, timeline therapy, and hypnosis therapy, helping her clients move from chaos to curiosity and regain control in their lives. We'll be discussing how Amanda's expertise can make a difference, the unique service she offers, and how her work benefits individuals and even workplaces. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Lorraine.
Okay, so can you give us a wee bit about yourself? What's your background? How did you get into breakup and divorce coaching?
Sure. So my background is 35 years in health and social care, working with mostly people with disabilities, learning disabilities, mental health issues, physical disabilities, a whole range of services. Latterly being registered manager and in the leadership management roles from an operationals point of view. And I noticed through that our workforce was becoming increasingly struggling with their own mental health as well as the people that we were supporting. So there was a lot of coaching and mentoring happening within that role for the staff that I was supporting as a manager. So I had gone off and done the neurolinguistics timeline and hypnosis training to kind of help me with that process. But at the time I was also going through my own divorce process and separation. So I had then gone to do breakup and divorce coaching to give myself the tools to help myself through that process, with a view that it was my long-term plan that once health and social care had had its time, that I would have a retirement, semi-retirement type of plan, but that sort of moved forward a little bit quicker once I'd started the divorce process myself, and I decided that it was for me now rather than down the track. So I took the leap and set up my own service and just went for it.
So you found more or less support for yourself by learning how to coach others?
Yeah. So because I was learning the tools to help other people with it, as part of that process, you're working with other people to help you through it, to learn those techniques. So in the learning the new skill, I was developing myself. And I do believe that you can only take people as far as you've gone yourself. So that whole kind of process of living that experience fills you full of resource that you can pull on at a later date. So yeah, it's stood me in good stead so far.
Brilliant. So you offer the breakup and divorce coaching, but you also do timeline therapy, hypnosis therapy. So how does that interlink with each other?
So they're all kind of interwoven. So I use them in different ways. So coaching is very much an action orientated process where it's listening, it's understanding, it's holding space for someone to find the answers that they already have within themselves. But then it's also about then not just stopping there once you've discovered what that is. It's about pushing through that and taking action into becoming the person that you were meant to be, or finding the relationship that you want, or changing behavioral patterns that haven't been serving you or holding you back in some way, and giving people the tools that they maybe haven't had before. So it could be, emotional resilience, overwhelm. It could be, learning to love yourself. It can be something really simple, like just breathing properly. It could be something more complex, that with legal situations, financial situations, or anything like that. But with the timeline and hypnosis in my back pocket, then I can also use therapeutic interventions without someone having to go elsewhere for a therapeutic process. So the coaching is very much about the action. The therapeutic side is about looking at root cause and trying to remove that root cause, or redistribute how someone focuses on the root cause. So I can use those techniques to varying degrees. Sometimes it's just using hypnosis, gentle trance relaxation to get someone in a position to be open and hear themselves and what they want. Or it can be that, you know, I've worked with someone before they go into the court process where they're so anxious about having to stand up in the dock in a family court that, you know, to do breathing exercises and just calm down before going in. And again, when coming out, has just helped them through that process to keep that clarity of thought and be able to express themselves in the way that they truly wanted to and had rehearsed to.
So if I can just go back, timeline therapy. What's timeline therapy?
So the timeline therapy is it's like visualizing your life on a line, and it's sort of as it says, but it's also about being dissociated from that. So it's not about being on that line with your own eyes, it's about rising above that line
Oh,
and
right.
looking down on it. So we can use that to look at unresolved issues where you haven't had closure on something, so that you can sort of, from a dissociated space, go and have a conversation with that person and put that to rest. It could be a conversation with yourself, it could be a conversation with someone else, or we can use it for goal setting. So if there's something that you absolutely want to achieve by a certain period of time, then you can set that goal, but then look at your timeline and insert certain convincers along that timeline, so that when you achieve each of those, it's like, right, I'm still on track to achieve that goal. So it can be used in a number of different ways. It's probably one of the things that I use most often, because if you can believe something, if you can see something, then you can achieve it. So if you can visualize where you're going, if you can imagine where you're going, timeline helps you leave it where it was or focus on driving yourself forward to get it, depending on what you're using it for. So it's really beneficial.
And then I suppose with the hypnosis as well, you can uncover those blockages that's stopping you going
Exactly.
forward to that timeline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So they're all interwoven.
Sorry, I've totally lost my train of thought. Going into that there. And so you also provide strategies for managing the legal, finance, and logistical aspects of separation. So do you do that yourself, or do you give them
No,
where to go?
I don't advise and guide. I only support and hold space to, like I say, the person generally has the answers themselves. But if it's part of the legal process, like finances, wealth management, fitness, anything along those lines, I have a team of associates that I have made connections with, that I try to remove the hard work for my clients. So I build those relationships so that then when usually when someone comes to me, they're in total overwhelm, where they've got decision fatigue, or they just have been in a position where they haven't had to think for themselves for so long, that they find it difficult to then launch into having to make decisions about literally every aspect of their life, and with immediate effect that could have such a long impact in their life. You know, they're making decisions now, say their kids are 2, 3, 4, but those decisions are going to affect them right up to the age of 18, 19, 20, 21. Whether that's, you know, getting the finances right, getting the pensions right, getting the school plan right, getting the co-parenting right. You know, there's so many aspects that they need to make decisions about, and the legal system doesn't wait for that. You have to make those decisions when you're in the spot to make those decisions. So my job is really about making sure that people don't make decisions from a place of overwhelm. It's removing that chaos and trying to gain that clarity to make those decisions, and to be able to live with the decisions that they have made as well down the line. So, you know, it's holding space for that, and questioning. A lot of my job is asking really awkward, annoying questions to make people think about, is this actually what you want, or is this what you want right now? Because what you want right now might not serve you in 15 years' time when your child's 20 going to university. So I work with a number of individuals in different areas, so that when someone comes to me in that state of overwhelm, I can say, okay, so I've got to know you a little bit better. I think that this particular professional would suit your personality or what your needs are. They're very skilled in this area, but they're empathetic in this way, or they're very skilled in this area and they're very direct, and that's exactly what you need right now. So, you know, I kind of match my associates to the client that I have. It's a very personalized service that I provide. So I listen to what the person needs and then match them to the associates that I have built up the connections with. And that comes from all sorts of places. You know, I've got stylists, colorists, that do color therapies around building confidence, how to dress for your body shape. I've got hairdressers, beauticians, estate agents, solicitors, financial wealth. I try to surround myself with as much of somebody's whole life as possible so that when that time comes, I can pull on those resources, or at least suggest that they go to that particular person. They don't have to take who I suggest, but it just sometimes takes that sort of another decision
Overwhelm.
off the table. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose whenever you think about they're starting a whole new life, so they need to navigate in a whole new circle. And it's getting that down, and at least you're there to hold their hand through that. So then, if they were saying going to a financial advisor or a legal team or going to court, do you go with them? Do you offer that service? Or
Can. Yep, I
okay,
can. And it may just be as an introduction. I may just
hmm
go for the first 10 minutes and then leave. Or if they don't feel confident in that, if because sometimes again the overwhelm can take over and
yeah,
you can't hear what somebody has said to you.
yeah,
You've heard it, but you didn't absorb it. So sometimes it's just good to have that other person there to then reiterate that, or take a family member or a friend or whatever. It's just whatever works for that person. But if it's someone that I'm introducing them to, I'm more than happy to go along with, because that just continues the connection with those associates that I have.
yeah, because it can be overwhelming, especially whenever it's all legal jargon and you don't
And a
know,
lot
like,
of the time in a relationship, it's usually one partner manages the money and one partner
yeah,
manages the home. So when it comes to a split and you have to do it all, it's sometimes stuff that you haven't thought of since you were, had just left home and were, a student
yeah,
potentially, or something along those lines. And, it's hard to just shift your mind back into, that overdrive of having to think of everything, and it's a bit like you don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it.
yeah.
So having someone alongside you that's going, have you thought about, and have you thought about, and have you thought about, is really beneficial in the long term.
And I suppose that leads into our next question is what's the most common emotional challenges your clients face? And I'm guessing it's overwhelm.
Overwhelm's one of the biggest, yeah, the emotional overwhelm. But, alongside that comes that loss of self-identity, which is another massive, massive thing that people underestimate, because, people identify as a wife or a husband or a partner, or, father or a mother, or, those roles are really, really intricate to the life.
Hmm.
So when that's removed, maybe part of the time or all of the time, or so then who does that make me now? So if the kids are away with the other parent, well, who am I? What do I actually like doing now when I'm on my own? I've never had to do this on my own before. Cooking for one. It's a shift from cooking for my family to cooking for one.
Yeah.
It's a shift in getting proportions right about what you've got in your fridge that you end up chucking out because you've overbought, and they're away for a few days, or all of those kind of things. Like, what do I wear now? Like, do I want to go out? Like, who do I want to go out with? Are my friends going to think that I'm mad wanting to step back out again? Or it could be that crisis of confidence and that fear of stepping into who you're becoming. Or it could be the crippling trauma. Some of the people I've worked with have been through really, really, really traumatic experiences within the relationships that they've been in. And that has been a cycle of behavior from, relationships that they've had in childhood with maybe a parental figure or another family figure or whatever. So there's a repeat in behaviors, and that's an area that we often have to work on as well. And just facing a new direction can be scary. Change is scary for everybody. Nobody really likes change, but how you embrace the change is what I help you work on. And being brave into stepping into that, because it's got so many exciting possibilities. And that's what makes me excited about doing what I'm doing. There's people come through the door and they're absolutely on the floor. They're on their knees, have no idea where they're going, what they're doing. And, a little while down the road and they're embracing the dating scene again, or going off traveling in a camper van around Europe, or whatever. There's so many different possibilities in whatever you want to do. But it's really about understanding that you deserve the future that you want to have. It's not necessarily dictated by what has gone before.
Yeah.
That was then. You've got a golden opportunity to write your new chapter in whatever language you want. It doesn't have to be what you've always spoken. It could be go and retrain. It could be change career. It could be just sell up and get a camper van or whatever it is that you want to do. The possibilities are endless. And I'm not saying, be frivolous and throw everything away and don't care and or any of those things. I'm just saying don't close those ideas off. There's when you start closing stuff off, then you're never going to move forward. You're going to get stuck where you're at. And when you get stuck where you're at, and if you don't deal with any of the trauma that you're going through, because let's face it, anyone that has gone through a minor to a major breakup still has a scar. It doesn't matter who you
Yeah.
are or how well rounded you are. There's something that you bring with you from each one. So if you don't deal with it, it's going to catch up with you. So that's what I try to help people to do is deal with what they were feeling, deal with what they know, and prepare for that happening again and have the tools and the resilience and the strength to embrace it.
I think what I'm getting is that you're helping them find themselves again.
100%.
You know,
100%.
they were
And that's where
themselves
they
before the
have,
relationship.
yeah, and they have all of the answers.
Mm.
It's all in there. It's just
Mhm.
having that conduit to, it's like a magic
Yeah.
hat. Look, this popped out. Forgot that was there. Do you know what? This popped out.
Yeah.
Oh no, put that back in.
You don't want that one. Uh, And then is so you work with men and women, and then if you work with both, is there various ways you work in one way with men, one way with women, or is it both very similar?
It's very similar. Like I say, no one comes out unscathed from a breakup or a divorce. The emotions are still as raw for each of them, and it doesn't matter whether you are the person that has left or the person who has been left. There's still a guilt, there's still a fear, there's still scars, there's still baggage that needs to be unpacked and dealt with to move into the next relationship that you have, whether that's platonic, whether that's in work, whether that's with other family members. You have patterns of behavior that potentially could need to be changed to protect yourself or to be a better person or to have more enriched relationships. And that's what I do. I help you see those things and help you change the patterns that you no longer want to have and embrace the new ones that create the life that you never thought was possible. But it's not really much different for men or women. Although I have been surprised at how many men I've ended up working with in comparison to women, which has been an absolute joy. It's very, very rewarding to see people become at any point in touch with their emotions and that resilience and be able to feel the strength that they physically show. So, the men can kind of come across that stereotypical way of, having to have the strength and not letting anything knock them down and all of those kind of things. When in actual fact, when they let those barriers down, they become a whole new level of strength in themselves that they didn't even know was possible because they've just been doing it at face
Yeah.
value and how they physically present. When they really start tapping into what makes them tick and how they feel fulfilled, it's a game changer.
That's brilliant. So it is. So you also offer support to organizations, and if you, and whenever in doing that, so how do you tailor yourself to help employees dealing with relationship transitions?
Okay, so I do that in a number of different ways. So again, it's a personally tailored service
Hmm.
to either the organization or the individual within the organization. So I can do one of two things or one of many things, but two categories. So I can either work with the individual who is going through that process that is, their work is being affected by the process they're experiencing, or I can work with the organization on relationships being productive, proactive relationships, positive relationships within the workplace. So I can work in two ways within the organization. So I work with relationship conflicts, so team dynamics, building resourceful and resilient teams, communication, working with teams, so with managers and team members, in creating more cohesiveness between the teams, opening up those communication channels, again, tapping into each person's personality and how they can equally contribute to the team to make it work better, what communication styles are working effectively for productivity and which aren't, etc., etc. So there's a whole host of how I can work, but I also can come in on a consultancy basis and do those one-to-ones with people to get them out the other side of particular aspects if they're struggling. So it just depends on what the organization needs.
You mentioned an important part there, working with the team and their dynamics. So consider now the whole world, it seems, has gone hybrid or remote. Do you find it very different now with the way teams are communicating and connecting? And how would you advise maybe people that are working remotely to embrace their team members and not become so disconnected?
Yeah, and I think that that's also an enhanced area of, it's easier for then the shyer members of the team to be lost in the background and not be forced into particular situations. Whilst that can have a negative mental health impact of being forced into situations that you're uncomfortable with, it's about understanding each of your team members and understanding what gets the most productivity and effectiveness out of them. So, if they are audits, for example, that I need to do for a staff, for each staff member, to see how a team would work more cohesively together, I can do those. But I do think that it's important to have those, whether it's, cheesy sort of coffee time together or whatever, that, everybody rolls their eyes at and groans about. Actually, someone somewhere is getting something out of that. And it's about the culture of the organization and making safe spaces for people to come together through choice, but also to feel safe in those spaces, so that it's, if someone is rolling their eyes or someone is being dismissive, it would be the same as what you would respond to that in a physical meeting. You wouldn't tolerate someone huffing and puffing in a physical meeting, so why would you tolerate someone rolling their eyes on a screen at somebody? Those kind of things. So it's about the organizational culture and how those kind of things can be addressed and pushed forward to make that productivity and creativeness continue.
So I'm just going to follow back on something. So you mentioned audits. So you would go into, say, if an organization, I know there's various businesses being acquired, and they're kind of fractional whenever they're acquired, and there's a bit of an animosity of being required and such. And so you would go in then, audit each team and member, and then come up with a plan on how to bring those together and connect with them.
Yeah, so I use my past management and leadership experiences and my management qualifications alongside the coaching stuff. So I do the business stuff from my management stuff, and then I do the coaching side from my new toolkit to sort of amalgamate those things together. And I also work in the area of improvement as well. So I use behavioral change, I use change management. In a previous role, I was employed to bring significant strategic and cultural change to a team that took me 3 years to turn around, but we did it. So I do have the experience of that corporate side of things in my back pocket, which I pull on in these instances. So it's not that I'm coming in from a woo-woo coach only a point of view. I understand business, I understand the bottom line, I understand the profit, I understand that teams need to work to be effective, and I know what you need to do to get them to work effectively. So I can do personal audits of individuals, then collectively as teams, and then put a plan in place to how I believe strategically that would help.
And I'm assuming then, I think every HR department should have somebody on their back burner that they can bring in. So you would then assess what they want and deliver a package then that would suit them. It can be on an ad hoc basis. Also, I think we're all, as business owners now, trying to look after their employees' mental health more
Exactly.
as well. And
Yeah.
if you see somebody struggling, you can bring them in, you can come in for that one person
Yeah.
or as a
I
whole
mean,
team.
employee assistant programs are so big at the moment, but
Hmm.
some of the time, I'm not going to generalize a lot of the time, but
Uh-huh.
some of the time, someone needs something very specific.
Yeah.
So it could be, you know, that they've had their 4 telephone calls to with the counsellor, and you know they're only just getting to a certain point. That counsellor maybe doesn't have the specifics around breakup and divorce that could move that person on
Yeah.
significantly quicker. So I'm happy to be outsourced in relation to that for
Uh-huh.
HR departments, but equally it is important to have that sort of holistic approach to your team these days. That you know the amount of absenteeism, loss of productivity, you know, going through a breakup and divorce is exactly the same process as grief. It's the exact same process as
Hmm.
losing somebody from your life. Um, and the difficulty with a breakup or divorce is that person is still around. So they can still cause harm. They can still be actively influencing your life in a negative way. Um, so that can be difficult for people because there's not necessarily a beginning, a middle, and an end. So sometimes it's the quicker you can get some of those coping strategies and resilience aspects into their life, the quicker they can move through the process. At no point can you miss part of the process. You still have to go through the process, but it's about how you efficiently get through that process the best that you can. And a coach can take you through that really, really quickly. And we have seen through the work that I've done with organizations an increase in attendance. So, you know, people would take a sick day because they're feeling a bit low and depressed and whatever, overwhelmed beyond a point where they can't get out of bed. You know, there was a point in my life where I had 3 weeks where I literally could not get out of bed. I had hit burnout and just could not function. And that's my driver. I don't want anyone to end up in that
Yeah.
position. And that's where my passion comes from. And I know that it doesn't have to be like that. I've seen the other side. It doesn't have, you don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay stuck. You can come out the other side. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter who you are, what the situation. There's hope. There's that chink of light. And I want to shine it bright. So it's really giving people those tools. And like I say, if the culture of the organization is open to having those conversations around, you know, it's just a breakup, or, you know, get over it, or
Yeah.
that is not a supportive environment for someone to be in. So they will take the day off because they don't want to face people going, you gurning about that again, or, you know, why is your face tripping you, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
you know. You need that safe space for people to be able to say, it's a bad day. Would you pick up the pieces for me? Do you know, tomorrow I'll pick up the pieces for you, but today could you pick up the pieces for me? But that's okay. Do you know, and it's okay to not to be on par 24/7. So for organizations to have an understanding of what the process is that someone goes through is also a piece of work that I do, so that they can understand what stage of each of the processes the person's at and how they can support them within the workplace to continue the journey on that positive trajectory, rather than, you know, being negative towards them in a manner that sets them back, rather than continuing the positive movement forward.
So just to touch on that there again, so you can actually go in and create like an FAQ as such of what an organization can do, and if you see this trigger point, do this here,
Yeah,
you know. Oh
yeah.
wow.
And it's obviously a very general sense, you know,
Yeah.
it's a very individual service, but as part of that process, we can identify what usually works best in this given circumstances,
Hmm.
what usually works best in this given circumstances. And if you create a culture around that, then people are going to feel comfortable and able
Hmm.
to, you know, come forward and say, look, going through a hard time. And the difficulty with breakup and divorce is, you know, it's usually approximately 9 to 12 months prior to separation that the person's been thinking about it. So their thoughts are consumed by that for 9 to 12 months. Then when they're actually going through that process, you know, if the court system can take a short period of time, but it can also be protracted over a very, very long period of time. So I think some of the statistics now, don't quote me on this specifically, but the statistics are roughly around the idea that there's a 30% loss of productivity in the year prior to your breakup, and then it drops to productivity of 50 to 60% during the process, which can be an average of about 4 years, and then it picks up again. So as an organization, as an employer, the best process that you can use is using coaches to get those individuals through that process as quickly as possible, to enable them to be in attendance, increase their productivity, and give to your organization how they want to be able to show up. Because nobody wants to be at home crying over their relationship. People want to generally move on once they see that there's a way to move on. So create that space for them to be able to do that.
I think that's so important service to offer businesses now, because a lot of businesses don't know. Like, you weren't trained in this, so how would you know how
And it's still
to
a
do
taboo
this?
subject.
Yeah,
With grief, you've got 3 days compassionate leave for most, close relatives. You've got, people are empathetic and you can take longer time either
yeah.
side of it. You can take your annual leave, or you can be creative with how you take time off, working half weeks in the middle of the week, or whatever it is, to break up your time at work and make it slightly more manageable. But when it comes to breakup and divorce, exact same process, like, I cannot stress how exact it is. That fear, the depression, the anxiety, the anger, all of those stages of that process are so real. But yet you're expected to go to work, function as a fully functioning human being, and not make any mistakes. That's not a safe space for someone to be in, so they'll choose not to go in. So
Yeah.
it pays to invest in your managers in particular, understanding what their staff team would be going through given that circumstance, and giving them tools to and signposting to people who can help them in the most effective way.
So then also, as HR, or maybe you don't even have HR, but would you be able to then also help create tools for the employees of people that are co-workers, to help support those that's maybe going through a divorce,
Yeah.
like, because, like, what do you say? How do you react with them?
Yeah.
You know?
So, like, in the health and social care sector, I delivered training as well. So I delivered supervision training to supervisors and managers and all of those kind of things. So, those are all part and parcel. Like, I understand the supervision process,
Mhm.
and I can tailor that to how, when you're talking about the individual themselves and where they'd like to go and how they'd like to get there, we can tailor some of that towards the individuals. But that's where it comes into the more of the teamwork aspect. It's not
Mhm.
just about breakup and divorce when it comes to teams. There's so many other things
Yeah.
that can happen within relationships, whether, like I said before, whether it's sibling relationships, whether it's a loving relationship, whether it's a parental relationship. We're all influenced by them. And depending on what age you are within the workplace, you could have 5 or 6 staff members going through different types of relationships, but experiencing the same thing. So, the fear of older parents passing, it could be, younger children going to university and leaving the nest. They're all losses. They're all similar in so many different ways. So it is about having that team understanding of, I might not be able to tell you exactly what is going on for me right now, but if you're open to understanding that I'm not swinging the lead, then, you know,
Yeah.
we could work together
Uh-huh.
and pull that team together to support each other at the times when it's needed.
Okay, so we've touched in about the business and the packages. So regarding the one-on-one, if somebody's going through a divorce, what might that how do you work with that? Do you give them a package, or what way does that all be
Again,
structured and so on?
it's individually tailored. So the first thing that we would normally do is have a 15-20 minute introductory call. And that is really to establish whether there's rapport between us, because this is a very personal journey. And if you don't gel with the person, you're not going to get the best out of them. So I also have other coaches I have in
Yeah.
my associates. So if I feel like another coach would be a better personal fit for that individual, I would refer on. But if they're personal fit for me and I'm a personal fit for them, it's a two-way street. It can't just be I feel like they're the right person for me to work with. They have to feel like I'm the right person for them to work with as well, because they have to be open and, you know, tell me things that they don't want to be telling any other human being about their personal relationships. And, you know, a lot of the recovery from breakup and divorce is about accountability and understanding your role in what went wrong, which
Yeah.
is a tough lesson. It's a tough lesson to hear. So you need to have a relationship with the person that you're having that conversation with. You can't just go, nah, don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Do you know, you have to be able, I have to be able to ask the difficult questions. I have to be able to call you out when you're trying to pull the wool over my eyes, and I have to be able to do that in a really supportive and, you know, conscientious way, because that's what you would be paying me for my services for. It would be remiss of me to just let you ramble and believe the things that you want to believe, because you'd be paying me for not achieving anything. You'd just be repeating the behaviors that you've been repeating all this time and end up back where you started, and have to pay me again, and that's not what I want.
That's
my
good to
goal
know.
my goal is to get people out the other side as quickly as possible with the tools that they can use over and over and over again. My mission is that they don't need me anymore. I don't want people to be
Coming
stuck.
back to you.
I want them to move on. Now I do have people that have worked with me for a while, and there's maybe a new stage coming into their life. They're maybe stepping their toe back in the dating scene, and, you know, it hurts when you get rejected for the first time again, and it unearths some feelings that you maybe thought you'd managed but didn't quite. So sometimes people come back and, you know, help through those sort of spaces. Then some people get remarried and have blended families, and, you know, some of that can be difficult to navigate because they're not your children per se, and how you rebalance the co-parenting in a different way. So people come talk to me about that. And then sometimes it's people for the second time round that, you know, it's been a different problem, and, you know, we do some further work. And I also have a couple of people that just come for a wee maintenance top up every 6 months, just to go,
Make sure they
yeah,
don't fall back.
I'm still back on track. I'm all okay.
The good
So it
thing
just
I'm hearing,
depends.
the good thing I'm hearing is that you're not just seeing them and then off you go. That's it.
Yeah.
You know,
And
if
that's
they
the
need that
difference
continued
between
support.
Yeah, that's the difference between me and a legal team, because
Uh-huh.
the legal team is literally there to do one specific job. The wealth management team, one specific job. The estate agent, one specific job. A breakup and divorce coach is your thread that runs through all of those things and is your constant and your guiding light, basically,
Uh-huh.
to keep you accountable to yourself and get what you deserve. As in, I'm not talking financial, I'm talking in general, get what you deserve your life to look like. But yes, it would start with an introductory call of 15-20 minutes to see whether we connect. And then the first session's usually 90 minutes to 2 hours. And that is because part of our process is that we need you to tell your story. We need you to tell us your relationship story. And that can be very provoking, and we need to hold space for you to allow you to do that in the most relaxed and supportive way. So that's usually 90 minutes to 2 hours, and then we never speak of that story again. We will address issues that come out of that story, but you will not continuously retell your story, because if you continuously retell your story, you're physiologically reliving that story as if you are going through it. And we want you to move forward. We don't want you to be stuck, but we want you to feel like you have told us everything that we need to tell. it's not that we won't revisit parts of it, because parts of it will be continuous into your now and your future, but in its holistic sense, your backstory stays there. And then each session moving on from that would be approximately an hour. And again, some people just do the 90 minutes to the 2 hours and they are done because they've gained the clarity that they needed around a very specific particular situation. Or it could be someone who, you know, has lots and lots and lots of sessions, because each time that they come, they find something new that they've become enlightened about and they'd like to pursue further or whatever. And there's no, like, I don't do you buy 10 sessions and you must take them all. That's not what it's about. It's really, if you're feeling it, we'll go with it. If you're not feeling it, that's also okay. And there's no kind of you need to pay £500 to get out a jail free card, like it's not, I don't hold people to task like that, because this is life at the end of the day, and life happens to people. Sometimes it just takes a turn, or something else happens and it's just not feasible, and the time frame for when those things happen can be very personal as well. Some people come twice a week, some people come once a week, some people come once a month. Like I say, some come once every 3 months or once every 6 months. Just, it depends on the situation and what the person wants out of the interaction with me.
And then also you do online and in person.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between what someone can get out of online and what someone can get out of in person, or it's really just person specific?
There's no difference from what you get out of it, apart from if you are someone who thrives on somebody's presence, then that's the only difference. So some people like to have the presence of the other person in the room, and like the physical presence, not just the digital presence. And that, it depends on your personality whether that is for you or not. But as from tracking the results that I've had, there is no difference in the outcome for individuals, whether it's online or in person. I also offer, for those local, I also offer, some of the people that I've worked with in the past have been from very traumatic relationships and struggled to, make a date or a time for someone to come to an office, or to book an online where someone can hear what's going on, or even with headset on, or, don't want to say something out loud or whatever. I have a camper van. So I often am found down coastal pathways in car parks with the kettle on, and someone's out walking their dog and they pop in with their dog, have a chat, and then go back on about their day, so that it's not drawing attention to the fact that they're actually speaking with a breakup or divorce coach, that there's a safe space for them within their own environment. So I will go to them. I will meet people where they're at, whether that be metaphorically or physically. Obviously, if they're in England or Europe or, anywhere else that I can work, I'm not taking my camper van immediately, but I would love to.
That's down the line.
But it's for those that are a little bit more local, that, are maybe struggling. And, Northern Ireland's a very small place. So, lots of people know lots of people that know lots of people. So sometimes just getting into a van in a car park that looks pretty indescript is the way to go. But equally, I've often hired a room within a shared space of offices, or those kind of things, or just been out walking and talking at the same time. A lot of people respond to. So again, very, very individualized service. I'm not prescriptive about how we do that. It's really about the individual, but the majority of what I do is online. Most people are happy to connect.
You're mentioning local, so you're in Bangor, so I'm assuming it's near Bangor.
Well, and sort of within it, again, depends on the time of the year, the day of the year, all of those kind of things. But yes, local to the North Down, sort of Belfast,
right,
Greater Belfast sort of areas. is easy. Lisburn, even, that sort of
Yeah.
geographical
Yeah.
area. That's, it's not a day trip. I do have kids too, so I need to be home for the school return. But anything that can fit in during the day, I'm more than happy to kind of do. And I love being in my camper anyway. So, like, I like getting out and about. So it's all good. I've got a wee session coming up. When the spring hits, I've got a wee 𝗂𝗵𝘁 in the camper session coming on. Just I'll be at certain locations around Northern Ireland, just dropping in, having a chat about what a breakup and divorce coach does. And if somebody wants a bit of a session, we can have a bit of a session. But just gonna put it out there and see a bit of the Northern Ireland that I haven't seen for a while. So
That's a brilliant idea. So it is. So couple more questions. So what's the biggest misconception people have about breakup and divorce coaching? And what would you want them to know about the benefits of working with a coach?
I think the biggest misconception is that it's for people that are broken. And it's not. It's for people who can't see the road that they are destined to be on. And I can help them see that. I can clear the chaos, I can clear the mist, I can clear the haze, I can clear the fog, whatever you want to describe it as, and see the potential and the possibility. And that was always one of the skills as a manager, was I could always see someone's potential before they could see it within themselves. And that is often the case. You never see the potential in yourself before other people see it. And there'll be lots of people who have said to you in the past, don't understand why you didn't do that before, because just haven't had someone to poke and prod you to get to that point. So the biggest misconception I would say is that people believe that it's for people that are broken as a result of a relationship, and it's not. Like I said, nobody comes out unscathed. Everybody is scarred in some way, shape, or form from a breakup or a divorce, depending on it doesn't depend on how severe or traumatic or whatever it is. There's scars of some description, and the more scars you build up, the more resistance to being open you build up, and therefore that will impact your further relationships. And I'm not just talking relationships of a romantic sense, as we've discussed, that comes into the workplace, the person that literally flies off the handle in a team meeting because their idea is being challenged or their idea is being turned down. There potentially is something going on in the background there. So I can, we can look at those kind of things. But the idea of working with a coach is kind of to ensure that you have the tools that you need to get where you want to go. If you drive around in an old banger that breaks down every couple of 100 yards, it's going to be a very long, tedious journey. Whereas if you have a mechanic sitting in the seat beside you with a huge toolkit coming along, passing you the tools as you go, it's still going to be a hilly ride, because that's life, and we love the scenery, and we love the hills, and we love the deals and whatever else, but it's not going to be quite so jumpy in the stop start. It'll be a little bit more of a smooth ride. So that's what I hope to achieve for anyone that approaches me for a service.
And I'm getting, you're not just doing the breakup and divorce coaching, you're actually being their life coach. So you are, because people can always come back, and do always come back and use you as an accountability partner, saying, look, I'm on my plan, I'm stuck here. So you're really hand holding through their whole life if they want it.
If that's what they want. And that's the thing, it's not a quick fix for everyone. Sometimes people take a very, very long time, and mostly because they don't want to see. They don't want to look too far ahead. But equally, there's others that are just going, oh, new lease of life, stepping in.
And get
really excited about it, and just go through it. But coaches take you through every step, from that breakup to the court process, to the co-parenting, to the communication with your ex, to your setting up a new home potentially, to protecting your finances that you come out with for the future, stepping into the dating scene again, like that whole spectrum. And that could be in a very short space of time. Like, just because I'm saying all of these things doesn't mean that you're stuck with me for a lifetime unnecessarily, but it can be a very short period of time, if you're really motivated for it. But
Yeah.
equally, some people just like that security of someone being in their corner. And that's what I do. There's no one else in this process that is purely in your corner with no other motivation than being your champion. The only person in your corner is a breakup and divorce coach, because solicitors have their bills to pay. And the system is the system. It's
Yeah.
not a great system, but it's what we've got. So we've got to roll with it. Financial wealth, there's commissions. There's all aspects of each. Everybody does a great job in a holistic way, but the only person that is absolutely motivated to be there for you is the breakup and divorce coach. And that's because they're coming from a place of wanting what is best for you, not what's best for them. And a lot of the other people, there's a bit of a dilemma and a conflict of, well, we could sell this product or we could do this thing, but I'd only get this or you'd only get that. So, but with a breakup and divorce coach, doesn't matter who your ex is, doesn't matter what gender you are, what gender they are, what your relationship status was, who your family members are, how affluent or poor you are. It does not make a button of difference. The person in your corner will always be your breakup and divorce coach, because they're completely impartial and only there to champion you. That's it.
And that's what you need whenever you can't see the weeds from the storm as such.
Exactly.
So breakup and divorces can feel overwhelming. So what's the one small action someone can take today to start feeling more in control?
Contact a breakup and divorce coach.
Kind of knew that was coming.
No, like, that's not the only solution. It's a great solution, don't get me wrong. And it's a very fast result solution. But sometimes it's just going back to basics. Sometimes it's just the very, very simple things and putting yourself first. It's that self-love aspect first, and creating a space of the whole airplane adage of, put your own oxygen mask on before supporting and helping anybody else. It's that ethos. Sometimes that's just going to the bathroom, locking the door, open the window, and actually breathing, rather than just go, and pretending that it's not happening, or not creating a space for it to happen, or any of those kind of things. It can literally just be breathing. And sometimes that's just enough to get 5 minutes of peace and just being present in that 5 minutes. There's material online, there's my socials. I had a webinar at Christmas. I've got another one hopefully coming up. I'm going to have a lot more online resources coming up over the next couple of months. So I did the Sparkle Through Christmas before Christmas to prepare people for first Christmas, because it's a difficult time. But the next one that I'm doing is a mindset reset for the spring. So a lot of people fall off the January wagon, and just having that clarity of thought around what your mindset needs to look like, and that self-care aspect of things. So that'll be coming up in the springtime, March, April time. And a couple more webinars then throughout the year. So there's some free resources on there. There's some tips and hints on the socials. And long term, there's guided meditations and all of those kind of things. But long term, if you are really badly affected by a breakup or divorce, then the place to go is get yourself a coach. Me personally, when I went through my breakup, I did mind, body, spirit, and law. So I went for talking therapies. Have no shame attached to that in any way, shape, or form. Many people do, but therapy, talking therapy's really, really helped me. For my body, I didn't go down the gym bunny route. That's just not for me. But I use flotation therapy, and it was a massive support to me. But I also just physically moved more, just started walking a bit more, and because it was free and I could do it around the block. I drop the kids to school, do a lap around the block and set you up for the day. Getting back to nature, all real simple things that are free and easily accessible to most people. And then the spirit stuff, just the meditation, the mindfulness, the just journaling is massive for me. I have a gratitude journal I do every evening. I do it with kids as well. It's really good to get them into a positive mindset and building their resilience and being appreciative of the smaller things in life. And then just making sure that you have a really good legal and support team around you is a key aspect of getting through divorce.
And you can help with all that?
I can.
Good woman. So what I'm hearing is it's just more or less make time for yourself and also be kind to yourself.
Exactly. I mean, they sound cliche, but honestly, it's the only place to start. It's the only place to start. Because if you don't go back to yourself, whatever you do, well, the foundations aren't there because you haven't done it from the starting point of yourself. And as parents, we're often in a position where we will always put our children first, and sometimes they just need the parent to be aware, self-aware, rather than just being aware of how they feel and what they're doing. They need to be self-aware, and it's okay for kids to recognize that their parent has emotions, and that this hasn't been easy for them as either, because then it makes it okay for them to talk about how they're feeling. And the other part of my mission is to make sure that the kids come out of these situations as unscathed as they possibly can, which is no easy feat either sometimes when it's particularly traumatic situation. But without the parents falling apart completely, the children can do absolutely fine as a result of having those interventions.
Yeah, as long as you have the tools for your support, I think that's the main thing. So it is. So you also mentioned that you were doing various events, podcasts, you've got various resources. Is that on your website or is that on your socials mainly?
It's well, mostly on my socials at the minute. My website, I had a disaster with before Christmas. I lost my whole website. I'm having to rebuild it.
Oh my gosh.
So yes. So I had a really beautiful website prior to Christmas, but unfortunately I've got a holding page right now. So it's in the process of being rebuilt. But once that is up and running, everything will be accessible through the website. But for now, socials, I do have a web page, but most of what's available is through the socials at the minute.
Okay, perfect. And any last words?
Just don't lose focus, stay hopeful, because you've got everything that you need inside.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amanda, for sharing the incredible ways you empower your clients during such challenging times. It's inspiring to hear how your coaching helps individuals not only heal, but thrive as they rebuild their lives. If you'd like to learn more about Amanda Barr and her services, visit her profile on Localware2. The profile includes links to her website, social handles, and a direct contact form, making it easy for you to connect with Amanda and explore how she can support you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more valuable insights and interviews with local experts. And remember, Localware2 is your trusted platform for discovering local businesses, jobs, discounts, and more. Thank you for watching and see you next time.